Hello and welcome to another 9-minute Bible study. Our starting point, Exodus chapter 15, and let's look at the last line in verse 26. I am the Lord that healeth thee. We are looking here at Jehovah Rapha, God our healer, specifically what Dr. Luke says on the subject. After all, we know that Luke is a doctor. And everybody pays attention to their doctor. And they do exactly as their doctor tells them to do. So let's see what Dr. Luke, an expert on healing, says about healing. Let's go to the Gospel of Luke, and let's start with chapter 5. And let's look, chapter 4 actually, and let's start with verse 38, where it says, And he arose, Jesus, out of the synagogue, and entered into Simon's house. And Simon's wife mother was taken with a great fever, and they besought him for her. Now here's going to be a consistent theme in the Gospel of Luke regarding healing, being aggressive. Those who just lay back and wait for things to happen. Yes, there will be times laying back, things will happen. But Luke, for the most part, when he's dealing with healing, he's dealing with aggressive people who are willing to take that desperate step of faith to see the miracle, the healing that they are looking for. Now, in the case of Peter and his wife, yes, Peter was married, they besought Jesus. This is more than, Jesus, if it is your will, would you please pray for our mother-in-law, that she will be healed from this horrible sickness? Now, we understand if you can't do this. No, besought. Jesus, you're in our house. Please, my mom is sick. She needs a healing. Now, you can't leave until she's healed. Besought means earnestly asking, borderline begging. So these two were begging for the healing of Peter's wife's mom. What did Jesus do? Did he say, you know what, you're just too aggressive and pushy. If you're aggressive and pushy, you get nothing from me. No. What did Jesus do? And he stood over her and rebuked the fever. Now, when Jesus is praying, he is also aggressive. He is not in a defensive posture. He looks at the sickness, and what does he do? He rebuked the fever. He spoke to the fever. It's as if Jesus knew about live viruses before anyone else did, because he did not speak to the woman. He spoke to the fever, the viruses itself, the bacteria, whatever caused the sickness. And he told them to what? Leave. He rebuked them, and it left her. They were gone completely from her body. So what do we see? An aggressive Peter and his wife, which leads to an aggressive Jesus and his rebuking of the sickness. Then what happens? Peter's mother-in-law gets up and she immediately begins to serve them. When there is a healing from Jesus, it will be complete and total. So what do we see right off the bat? Aggressive faith. If you want to access Jehovah Rapha, you got to be aggressive. You can't just hold back and wait for things to happen. In the Gospel of Luke, it doesn't work that way. Let's keep going. Verse 40. And when the sun was setting, all they that had any sick with divers diseases brought them to him. Again, the concept of aggressive. If they just would have stayed at home and not done anything, these sick folk would have never been healed. When they brought their sick, they were willing to wait as long as possible, to force their way to the front of the line where Jesus was. Why? Because they were aggressive. Faith means aggressive, not passive, not waiting. Maybe Jesus will pass by and we'll be healed. No, aggressive. Come to Jesus. Do what it takes in order to be healed. And what was the end result? And he laid hands on every one of them, Jesus being aggressive as well. When it comes to healing, the one who receives, they're aggressive. The one who is ministering is also aggressive. None of this, oh, if we only wait, good things will happen. Aggressive faith. In the result, Jesus healed them all. Those who were not aggressive, they were not healed. Those who were aggressive, they were healed. Let's go into chapter 5. And let's start with verse 12, where it said, "And it came to pass, when he, Jesus, was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy, who seeing Jesus fell on his face and besought him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean." What do we see here once again? Aggressive faith. The world around this leper, they would have told him, don't bother the master. You're making a public spectacle of yourself. My favor, you're embarrassing us. Like us being embarrassed is the big deal. If a person needs to be healed, don't worry about embarrassing those around you. You need to be aggressive to the point where you can receive your healing. Too often, defensive, passive. If this man was defensive and passive, he would have never received anything from Jesus. What do we see? Loud, begging. Remember, he's a leper. He can't get too close to people. So he's got to be loud. I want to be healed. Aggressive. Had he not opened his mouth, would Jesus have touched him? Absolutely not. His aggressive faith is going to be what? Rewarded. Let's finish the rest of verse 12. Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And he, Jesus, put forth his hand and touched him and said, I will, be thou clean. And what do we see from Jesus? Aggressive faith, aggressive ministry. Jesus aggressively comes to the man. Remember, this is a society where you don't touch lepers. Well, here is Jesus being aggressive. He comes, he lays hands on the people, and what happens? I will, be thou clean. And the man is healed. So what do we see? Aggressive faith, aggressive ministry. When dealing with Jehovah Rapha, we need to be aggressive. And then when ministry is happening, it must be equally aggressive. Aggressive faith leads to miracles. And we will pick up with this in our next lesson.